As we continue to explore morphology, we note a very common phenomenon. This phenomenon is called compounding. Compounding occurs when you have two free morphemes, in the case of signed languages, two individual signs that fuse together to form a new sign with its own unique meaning. Now, it's important that we note that these signs have their own unique meaning because if two signs are used together but there's no unique meaning related to them, then that's just a phonological process. It doesn't affect the meaning. But morphological processes like compound come about when a new meaning is actually created. We see this in English with words like blackboard and earring and billboard. I remember recently hearing someone talk about a green blackboard. And while it sounds a little funny, it certainly makes sense to us. We understand what a person means when they say a green blackboard, because a blackboard isn't really primarily about the color of the board. When you say blackboard, though it once related to the color of the slate that was used to make the board, it's now used to just refer to something you write on with chalk. You can hear similar people saying similar things about earrings and billboards, where the original meaning of the two individual terms has been lost and a new word has been created. In sign language, we notice that certain processes tend to occur whenever compounding occurs. First, we notice that if there are two signs that are used, whatever the first contact point is, that will remain. So in the sign homework, home usually has two contact points, for one by the mouth and then one by the cheek. That initial contact point will remain. So you still have the movement by the mouth when you sign homework, but the second hold, the hold up on the cheek, is often deleted. So you just have the movement by the mouth going down into the sign work. Also, the internal movements and repetitions of signs are eliminated. So if you were to sign the sign home and then the sign work, you would have a contact at the mouth, a contact at the cheek for the sign home, and then you would have the sign work, which has two movements down by the wrist. But when the sign homework is created from those two individual signs, you simply have the sign by the mouth and then the one movement down for the sign work. You don't have that additional movement in the sign work, so that you just have a swift movement from the mouth to the wrist for the sign homework. Also notice that weak-hand anticipation can happen, so that when I'm signing something like homework, my non-dominant hand will come up and be ready even before my dominant hand moves downward. So as I'm signing home, the non-dominant hand is ready for the sign work. This is how we know that a new sign is occurring that's losing the characteristics of the original signs. Some of the holds, contact holds of the sign home are removed. Some of the movements of the sign work are removed to get this new meaning. Further phonological rules can then be applied, these phonological rules that we've already talked about. So you might have movement epenthesis or hold deletions or assimilations that can occur just as they occur in normal phonological processes. But it's important to note that after compounding has happened, a new meaning occurs. You know, I talk to deaf students all the time who say they're doing their homework and they're clearly sitting at the university, because homework no longer carries the meaning of something done at home. It simply means something done after class. So when they sign homework, it doesn't mean home per se. It's got a new meaning, just like people say blackboard in English, and it now has a new meaning. So we see lots of compounds in ASL. And notice these are not all based on English compounding. Homework happens to be the same compound in ASL as it is in English. You have the sign home and the sign work, and you have the word home and the word work. But most ASL compounds are not based on English at all and don't follow that pattern. So we have compounds that relate to breakfast, lunch, dinner, bruising, pillows, to agree with, and all of these compounds that you can see and that you can look up, or you can ask your instructor the meaning of the various compounds if you're not familiar with them. But it's important to note the compounds don't always maintain their original meaning. So even though you have the sign food buy, which means grocery shopping, you may not buy any food at all when you go food buying, right? Because the meaning food buy is grocery shop. And so even if you go quote unquote grocery shopping and you don't buy any food at all, but you buy other types of groceries, that sign could still be used, because with compounding you have a new meaning that's happened after all of these morphological processes have occurred.